Breath of the Wild 2's surprise reveal was probably the only E3 2019 moment more exciting and more crowd-igniting than Keanu Reeves on stage at Xbox. But rightfully so, it's the biggest Switch game and probably one of the best Zelda games ever, maybe even the best. So knowing that a sequel is incoming, huge news. So when today we get new information about Breath of the Wild 2, and specifically its origins from the legendary Aonuma himself, it's a big deal. We had to read into it, check it out, and key you in on all the important details.
Zach, this was an awesome interview from Jason Schreier from Kotaku with Aonuma, talking about a lot of Zelda stuff, including some Link's Awakening tidbits that you guys can go check out. The link for the article will be in the description, but I found it super curious that this started off as DLC because we got the Season Pass, and the Season Pass, while still cool because it had the Champions Ballad, Zach, you got to ride around in a motorcycle at some point. How fun was that? They supported the game for a while, but they made very quick work of it. They said, hey, this is it. After there's gonna be no more DLC. So I have to imagine that's when they decided, like, hey, there is so much here, let's just make a brand new game.
Yeah, well, let's not gloss over that important statement. Like, this game began as a boatload of DLC ideas for Breath of the Wild 1, and that's sort of the reason, the fire starter of why they decided to go into a sequel instead of a brand new entry, right? Or a completely separate entry, rather. Aonuma says, when we released the DLC for Breath of the Wild, we realized that this is a great way to add more elements to the same world. But when it comes down to technical things, DLC is pretty much data. You're adding data to a pre-existing title. And so when we wanted to add bigger changes, DLC is not enough. And that's why we thought maybe a sequel would be a good fit.
Yeah, we've heard that this is going to be darker than Majora's Mask. We've heard a bunch of things that make me excited for this game. I don't know what they're going to end up doing story-wise. How do you go from just like DLC ideas to a brand new game and somehow wrap a story around it? I'm sure they're going to do a great job of it. Right. You know, the story and the Zelda games is part of the reason why I love it, on top of the puzzles, the exploration, the fun combat, stuff like that. But I wonder just how many DLC ideas they had before they decided to say, wait, stop. This isn't DLC. This feels like a brand new game. Let's just do that.
Right, and it kind of reminds me a bit of sort of how Mario Galaxy 2 came about a lot of their ideas that were left on the cutting room floor, and some of their more creative ideas couldn't fit into Galaxy 1, and that was sort of the impetus for Galaxy 2. I wonder if that's the case here, where their bigger, bolder, more creative ideas, in this case maybe darker ideas, couldn't make it into 1, and that sort of is the foundation for 2. But if you're worried about maybe there being too many same elements, right? Too many similar features and facts, given that this did begin as DLC ideas, take this quote. I think it's important. Schreier asks, was this sequel originally planned as DLC? And Aonuma says, initially we were thinking of just DLC ideas, but then we had a lot of ideas and we said, this is too many ideas. Let's just make one new game and start from scratch. So at some point, there was a big shift, right? It went from just trying to be additive to wholly new. And I think that's, to me, the most exciting thing I've heard about Breath of the Wild 2 yet. Start from scratch. I like that a lot. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be every element is new, right? It doesn't mean that every gameplay loop is going to be completely different. I'm sure there will be a lot of similarities. But I love hearing that they did push these DLC ideas and then go back and say, okay, let's reevaluate and how can we make this something all its own?
Yeah, for me, like, this is a really unique situation because Zelda games don't get direct sequels usually. I mean, it's happened. It's happened. Majora's Mask is the one that everybody keeps going back to.
That is so. I feel like my guess would be that this is more similar than that.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, this is way more connected than it had ever been. We know that the name of the game isn't Breath of the Wild 2. We just call it that just like in passing because that's what the game is. But it wouldn't surprise me at this point if they, I don't know. Hold on, let's stop there for a second. Do you think they call it Breath of the Wild 2, or do you think it just has a different name?
Breath of the Wild is now so synonymous with the best of Zelda. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. If they hadn't done Galaxy 2, then I'd say no. But if they're willing to do it for Mario, they've even done New Super Mario Bros. 2. I mean, Breath of the Wild 2 doesn't seem that crazy.
Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe they do give it a different name. We don't know right now. But yeah, the fact that it started off DLC and that they started from scratch, like you said, that is exciting because it's such a good Zelda game. The structure is there. So if they can somehow take everything that was there that we loved, right? The giant open world aspects of it, and then somehow give us more traditional dungeons, like, yeah, they're bringing.
Well, I think that's gonna be the big thing. Is like, I would imagine that the DLC was looking to add elements that maybe the base game was lighter on. And so if this did start as DLC, does it start as a multiplayable character adventure? Does it start as something that includes many more traditional dungeons? Is it something that is more focused on the traditional loop that The Legend of Zelda has utilized? I wonder if that, because it began as something to add to Breath of the Wild 1, I think will probably change the flow and structure of 2. Not as much as Majora's Mask. I don't think we're getting a countdown timer and a giant moon. But it's very interesting. And it's also interesting to me that Jason Schreier, who was there speaking to Aonuma, he said that he wouldn't answer most Breath of the Wild questions, right?
Of course.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that Schreier himself says, if I had to guess, I'd say that it'll be their big focus at E3 2020, Breath of the Wild 2 here. And then we'll see it released that fall. He says no inside info. And I believe he's just gut instinct guessing here, but this is the man that did sit down with Aonuma and did hear about, what they're doing. We also know that Aonuma is on Breath of the Wild 2. He's not on Link's Awakening. His team, which by all accounts is the Zelda team, right?
Yeah,
the tentpole team.
It's the A team, yeah.
Is on Breath of the Wild 2, and it's actually Grezzo, the studio that handled Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D, who's on Link's Awakening. So, for that to be the case, that tells me that they have been on this for a while, and that is factually backed up by the fact that it did start as DLC, so of course they've been on this for quite some time.
Yeah, I feel like right around when Breath of the Wild came out, soon after that the DLC stuff started, and I'm sure that's when they separated the Champions Ballad stuff with whatever did eventually come to that game, and then somewhere along there they put a pin in it. They're like, hey guys, this is new, so we probably have a decent time frame of when the development for this next Zelda game started, which is unique. We don't always know exactly when until way later, and they'll let us know, oh, we started, at this time. So
Sure.
Having known that it has been in development for a while, and the fact that it's going to use the same world, that's also been confirmed. There's going to be changes, I believe, but
Sure.
for the most part, assets are going to be reused, environments are going to be reused. So to Jason Schreier's point, maybe it does release late next year, because a lot of the work has been done. They have a good blueprint to go off of to create this new thing. So maybe the development time will be shorter. Who knows?
Well, and speculation is obviously very difficult to pin down, but if you look at what has happened with Metroid Prime 4, perhaps this did become fast-tracked, and perhaps this did, sort of take a priority and become the top dog for Nintendo, knowing that Metroid Prime 4 is now probably behind this, right, in terms of development. If we're to say that, okay, this probably started after that Champions Ballad or right around that time, it's had a year and a half of development, and with that being the case, there's, Metroid Prime 4 just got restarted at the beginning of this year, or maybe a little bit before it. So Breath of the Wild 2 is farther along by all accounts.
That's so crazy to me.
It is weird. So that very well could be their tentpole title for fall of 2020. Now, I still don't want to put too much stock and too much hope and faith in a 2020 release.
Yeah.
But Nintendo loves their shorter cycles. They seem to have learned their lesson with the apologetic tone that the Metroid Prime, reveal / apology took. I don't think that if this was 4 years out, they're talking about it. And now that we know that it began as DLC and how it's sort of being put together, maybe we are playing a new Zelda adventure at E3 next year.
I think the latest 2021, like March, to coincide with the original release of Breath of the Wild, a few years after that. That would also make sense to me. So we're going to see. Either way, I don't think this thing's super far off. I definitely think we get Breath of the Wild 2 before, or whatever it ends up being called, before we get Metroid. I do feel that.
Yeah. It's got to be at this point. I mean, it'll still have been 3.5 or 4 years between Breath of the Wild 1 and 2, which right now, for some reason, it feels like such a small period of time. But if you consider 4 years, that's a long time. If it was 2021, or even 3.5 for fall 2020, that's still a substantial amount of time. So it'll be very interesting to see where this goes and how the cycle, takes shape. Like, when do we hear from it next? When do we see bits next? And how, knowing that it began as DLC, how does that inform what we see and what they decide to put out there in terms of the structure and maybe even the hooks of this game that I would hope have a more eccentric feel, given that concept of starting as DLC
or co-op. Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't want to get too crazy about that, but you know that's one thing that people really want. They want playable Zelda, they want some co-op action. We just got it on a very small scale in Cadence of Hyrule, and that in itself is a treat, just to see these characters be able to be playing next to each other. So that's one big reason to go pick up Cadence. I want to see that game at number 1. I think it was at number 2 for the bestsellers. Regardless, this Zelda sequel, whatever it ends up being called, I'm not worried about the fact that it started off as DLC. I know some people might take that in a negative.
Oh, I don't think it's a negative at all.
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, unless you were just hoping for something dramatically different, like the next Zelda to be the complete next evolution. But with the groundwork that they clearly invested so much time in for this game, and with the beloved reception that Breath of the Wild had, there's no way that you go away from it that quickly. Also, remember that Breath of the Wild was a cross-gen title. This one will be a Switch exclusive title, and hopefully, alongside the creativity that their DLC ideas may bring, hopefully the experience with the Switch and the dedication to the Switch allow for even, further deepening of the mechanics, the world, the exploration, the size, the scope, etc.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of time to talk about what we want from Breath of the Wild 2. Thankfully, it is a long lead up. You said it's not a train quite yet. At some point, it will be. And it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe Jason Schreier's right. Maybe we do get it late next year. Who knows?
Line up against Halo, line up against whatever Sony's got with that PS5, and go to battle. It's going to be a big, fun time. Let us know your take in the comments down below. How do you feel about Breath of the Wild 2 starting as DLC, and what might that mean for the eventual game? Hopefully you enjoy seeing our faces. You got a lot of them today, and we'll be getting a lot more soon. Until that time, though, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and are pumped for Breath of the Wild 2. I got to think of something new to say. Pumped for Mario Maker 2. Pumped for Breath of the Wild 2. Gabe, give me a new phrase. What am I going to say?
I mean, you could say excited, looking forward to. There's a bunch of things.
Help me think of a new phrase in the comments down below if you're extra creative yourself. We need some DLC for Switch Force now. That's what we need. Switch Force DLC coming soon. Until that time, myself and Gabe, thanks so much for watching. Switch Force